Strategists talk about black swans, which really means unexpected events. When I think about those things, what I worry about now is the risk of, for example, attacks by cyber means on Australian critical infrastructure. If you look at our grid, our electricity grid, gas network, our hospital network, all of these things are now run essentially by internet-carried systems which are capable of being hacked. And I think the first stage of any major war is going to be an attack on that critical infrastructure designed to shut it down. That's something that we should be concerned about right now.
There is scope for black swans within our own country. The one I often use is a prospect of WA secession. You can see that economy powering on by itself during COVID. That is the one of the major links to China through the mines there. A second one is the ability of ourselves to kick our own goal in terms of the alliance by signing the treaty for the prevention of nuclear weapon. That would be a breaker. And given that we depend on the alliance so much, it's one of our core assets. That would be a own goal and a black swan.
One of the black swan events we might face is the global supply chain. We have benefited for 30 or 40 years with lower costs and high availability of almost anything you can think of. But in pursuit of lower costs, we have gotten to a position where there's extraordinary concentration in the supply chain. Integrated circuits from Taiwan, solar panels from China. There's always a risk that one of those sources will just cease to exist. So then we've got the challenge of deciding whether we want to try to replicate some of that capability that we don't currently have, or whether we just continue on as we have been, taking advantage of the globalization. There's just a balance to be had between building up our capabilities and taking advantage of lowest cost, highest quality, most flexible sourcing of what we need in the supply chain.
A black swan would be if someone was elected in the United States who was less amenable to supporting countries like Ukraine and Taiwan, less amenable to acting as the leader of the free world. That would pose a significant challenge to Australia's national security in the coming years.
Black swan events are always really difficult to predict, but I think something that would be somewhat unexpected, but not necessarily unpredictable, is the possibility that we might have a very left-wing coalition that dominates Australian politics, which is very isolationist, anti-American, very inward-looking, and would potentially or could potentially water down our commitment to the US-Australia alliance. We have to contemplate what that might mean if we did have a very left-wing coalition and a decline of the Liberal parties or centre-right coalitions in Australia, and what that might mean for our defence, and whether this might mean more accommodationist thinking might come to prevail in the political discourse.